Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
All right, we're back. We've got two new guests today to hang out with Tyler, Mike, and me. Karen and Mike Brown. Karen came on the job with me a couple of years ago in D.C. Her last name, I know her as Karen Losi before she got married to Mike Brown. She is a firefighter in the city, and Mike's up in Scranton, PA. He migrated up there from a couple other departments before he landed and migrated north. So now they own a shred all document destruction shredding company based out of the Dunmore, PA / Scranton, PA area. So Mike and Karen, thanks for hopping on with us. This is going to be a good conversation. I like that. I've been poking Karen for a couple months now, trying to get her to come on this podcast. So I'm glad that you guys finally decided to pull the trigger and hop on and spend some time with us.
Yeah,
so
thanks for having us.
Mike, I'm gonna start with Mike, and then we'll get to Karen. I know Karen's story kind of better than Mike. So, Mike, tell me how you got in the fire department. I know you kind of bounced around a little bit before you landed where you are.
Sure. So, like many folks out there, I started as a volunteer, fell in love with it. Started in the DC metro area in Anne Arundel County. Great organization. Really had a lot of fun and a great experience. And you know, I really enjoyed it. I was commuting at the time, so that was a consideration. I was offered a position after Anne Arundel with the Lebanon City Fire Department outside of Harrisburg. And so I left Anne Arundel to go to Lebanon. Lebanon was another fantastic experience. It was very difficult to leave Lebanon. Just fantastic people. In Lebanon, it was a smaller fire department in both geography and in staffing, but I was really proud, and I think that organization should be proud of what they were able to do with the staffing that they had. I mean, there was nowhere to hide in Lebanon. I mean, there were 7 of us, and you know, the fires went out because we were all, everyone except me, of course, was very, very good at their job. They were fantastic, and I was really able to cut my teeth in Lebanon. And then I made a difficult, but a decision I do not regret, a difficult decision to accept a position in the city of Scranton. So that's where I reside now. I was a firefighter in Scranton for 4 to 5 years. I was promoted to driver operator. And then about a year ago, I was promoted to lieutenant, which is where I'm at now. And so life, you know, I'm a very fortunate person. My barometer has always been I've worked some crummy jobs, and you know, being able to roll out of bed and at the end of the day really enjoy what I do. I consider myself very, very fortunate in that respect.
And Karen, where did you start the fire department service at?
So a little backstory for both of us. We both grew up in the Scranton area. I volunteered here. I still volunteer with the company I cut my teeth with. We went to Mansfield University together. So Mike and I grew up like less than a mile from each other, but we did not know each other growing up. We went to college together and joined the fire department in Mansfield, which is north central Pennsylvania. Had a great experience there together. So that's when we started dating and whatnot. I moved back home after I graduated, and I had tested in a bunch of big city departments. That was always what I wanted to do. DC called, and the schedule worked with kind of allowing me to stay home a little bit. I had various apartments in that region when I was younger, but now I just commute from home from here in Scranton. And so anyway, we knew each other before the fire department, and we had shred all together before Mike got hired.
Yeah.
So shred all was actually my mother actually had started the company. And then she retired from her. She started it as a side business, and was working full time for
PPNL.
Yeah, local utility company here. And
So what?
So
if I
so
may,
we
yeah.
before we got married, even, right?
Right. What transpired for us with the business transpired very, very quickly. At the time, I had gone to college. I have a degree in education, so I'm a teacher by trade, and I was just doing day-to-day substitute teaching for like $50 a day. And Karen's mom had retired, and she just wanted to be retired completely. So she was going to sell the shredding business to a broker. She approached Karen and said, "Hey, does Mike want to run this?" And, of course I was like, yeah, I mean, I'll be an instant millionaire. I'll sit here and kick my feet up and just watch the money roll in. And of course, I'm sure all you guys can deeply appreciate that that's, you learn the hard way. That's not the case.
We're still waiting for that.
We're still waiting for that day to occur. Anyway, I would drive my 20-year-old Honda CRV and pedal, not pedal,
You did. You peddled our services.
I went to, pharmacies and medical facilities and lawyers and built the business organically. And because it was my baby, it was all I had, it was all I was doing. And then the fire department happened. And in 3 years, I had 3 different career opportunities in the career fire service. And that's that. And here we are.
So for those of you not familiar, if you're not familiar with where they're stating, like, Karen's got quite a drive. It's like 4 hours from where you live to Washington, D.C., correct?
Right. And so a lot of people, Mike and I he started his career in the same region. And a lot of people said, like, why didn't you move down there? The reason is that Scranton is home. We don't live here because Mike works here. Like, Mike kind of works here because we live here. And it's where we're from. And we had the business. So I was kind of attached to that. Which was another reason for keeping the commute. And we just like this region. It's a great place to raise a family. It's where our families live. And so, with the 24-hour schedule and both of us kind of overlapping sometimes, we sort of need to be close to our families. We have a son, so that's, who watches your kid overnight.
Yeah. So the 24/72 definitely helps with how far away you live, correct?
Definitely. Yeah. I couldn't do it on any other schedule. It just wouldn't work.
Mike, what's your schedule?
We do a 24 on, 48 off.
Do you have a Kelly day?
We do. Yep.
So do we do 5 rotations of that and you get your Kelly day?
Yeah, we work no more than 7 consecutive shifts, and then we're off on a Kelly day. Okay. And then you sprinkle in holidays and vacations and stuff like that.
Mike Webb, what's your schedule in Frederick? It's 24/48s, right?
Yeah, with a Kelly.
Is it 5 rotations or what?
I don't know. Is that like 3 weeks? A 21-day cycle.
Okay.
So
Tyler, what was yours in LA? Or what's yours in LA?
Right now I'm working a 0168, but our LA County schedule is modified Kelly. So 1 on.
What's that mean?
So it's 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 2 off, 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 4 off, and then it just repeats.
Yikes.
It's like that crazy Northern Virginia shit. Like,
wow.
It's really good when your staffing
I can't understand it.
Yeah.
God
really
bless
when
your
your staffing sucks.
Is that just like getting repetitively kicked in the stomach?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And like right now, it's so bad that guys, my department's going to love this. It's so bad that guys will literally work certain days, so they cannot get recalled on their off days. Like they'll max out. Like let's say, for example, they'll work 4 in a row just so they cannot get recalled for that 5th day. Right. If that makes sense.
Dang.
So Ty, you were commuting in like an hour or 2 as well, right?
Yeah, 57 miles each way, and that's in LA traffic. So it's usually about an hour on the way there and an hour and a half to 2 hours on the way home. So lots of time for Audible and podcasts.
I used to commute 2 hours, like probably till about, I don't know. I've lived in this house 10 years, I think. So, but when I first got hired, I used to commute right around 2 hours door to door. And
that's all you know, right?
None
of us we get used to it. Yeah, we get used to it.
You
4
do,
or 5
but I was
like,
damn.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you have to consider getting your pilot's license. Shit.
It's just, people in DC who work 5 days a week are in their car for at least an hour each direction with traffic. So it's like the same amount of time.
It is. Yeah. It's just, sometimes it's like hard to process, but whenever you're doing it every 4 days, I guess it's all relative. So it's your university on wheels, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Aaron, how far are you into your career now? How long have you been in DC? It's been.
I'll have 14 years at the end of the month.
Okay, and Mike, where are you at in your career?
I'm a shade under 8 years.
Okay. So so I know our retirement's 25 years, and then we have the option to leave. We don't have a drop program. Mike, what's yours look like?
Ours is the same, except the only stipulation we have in addition to 25 years is you also have to be 55 years old.
Okay. So that sounds like our tier 2, Karen.
Yeah.
So you guys plan on owning this company and growing it and continuing it throughout your careers, if I remember correctly, right?
We think so.
We think so. I mean, I joke that it's always for sale for the right number, right? But
but you've expanded though.
We have
quite a bit.
We have. So we started with one truck, which we actually just sold, and it was kind of like we sold a big piece of our heart. But our original truck that we bought from my mother was it was just a box truck, and it had a belt-fed shredder, so you had to stand in the back of the truck and literally push each piece of paper through the shredder and then bag it on the other end. So it was like sort of a two-person operation where one person pushes paper, the other person's bagging it. Every garbage bag gets picked up and loaded and then offloaded by hand the same way. And when we look back on that process now, like it's just crazy to think about how far we've come, like just in that simple mechanical process. You know, we now have two different automated shred trucks. They have two different processes, but the same basic concept of the bin gets picked up by an automatic lifter, dumped in the top, gravity feeds it down through the shredder, an auger pushes it into the back of the truck, and then when we go unload, the floor walks itself off. So it's totally automated for the most part now, versus like the totally manual process we used to have.
So why would somebody utilize like a shred service versus just like the homeowner size one I have next to me?
It's just purely a function of volume. I mean, there's just certain institutions that just produce so much sensitive information they need destroyed. It's I just not to sound short. It's just volume. I mean, we have a ton of customers who had started that route, had gone to Staples or Office Depot.
So it's mostly commercial clients type thing. Like
yeah, and I would say so. There is a standard for certain clients that we have, like I think certain healthcare realms and government realms. We provide a certificate of destruction for a lot of our customers. We will provide it for anybody that asks, but many do ask. And I think for them, their insurance requires that it be done by like a professional certified company.
So do you have to hold any license or anything for that?
No.
No, I mean, so one of the things that's nice about our trucks and our equipment is the process is 100% transparent. Like we have nothing to hide. And one of the nice features about our trucks that has distinguished us from our competition is, I mean, the customer can just walk out the front door and watch the process from start to finish and just watch the material be rendered into, totally indistinguishable material. So, that process is transparent. It's pretty public. Like, they can just step outside and have a cup of coffee and watch the process. So,
and the trucks are certified. The trucks are certified through NAID, which is the National Association of Information Destructors, I think.
So do you weigh the material before you shred it, or how do you basically come up with what you're going to charge?
So basically, I'm sorry, just one more time.
I was just saying, like, how do you basically determine, is it like a subscription service? So like when I was at the academy, like this guy would come in once a week or whatever it was, grab the little canvas bag, put the new canvas bag in and take it. And I don't know whether he scanned it and then put it on Facebook and Reddit or destroyed it. Like, I have no idea.
That definitely
so like, how do I, well, I mean, good luck if he saw some of the notes that never mind. But, like, how do you have like a subscription service, or do you just say, hey, I call it whenever I got a bunch of stuff to shred, or is it a little bit of both?
We do all that. So we do have several customers that are a subscription, whether it be monthly or biweekly or weekly or whatever. We have a predetermined interval that we show up on and do just that, right? We take we use two types of containers, the bag out of the console, like you talked about, or like a bin on wheels, which is essentially a rolling trash can. Both of them are locked, secure containers. So some of our customers have a regular interval that we pick those up on. We shred on site. So some companies that do offsite shredding will just swap your containers, but we bring it out to the truck and the truck shreds it and they get their same container back. So we price that by the container. We have other customers that still hold one of our containers, but it's not necessarily a subscription. They'll call when it's full, and we just go and empty it. And then we also do like large scale or small scale cleanouts, and we'll price by the box.
I mean, you basically have two classes of customers. You have customers that want to destroy their material on a regular basis, and then you have customers that hold on to it for 5 years, a decade, a century, and they have accumulated an ass ton of paper.
That's more than a metric shit ton.
Yeah.
So,
But to put
do
it
you
in
ever do you worry about some of the transition of everything becoming electronic or moving?
We do.
Electronic as an industry, like I would imagine that's something that industry has had to look at, right?
We do, and ironically, to your point, a boon to us has been the transition to electronic media, because as information is stored digitally, then there's obviously a need. Once that information is stored digitally, there's a need to destroy the paper record. So ironically, that transition has been a boon, but all good things must come to an end. And so once that information is in fact in digital format, yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. There is a concern.
Yeah. And
as far as
I would imagine there's some places that still do a redundant, like electronic. And
I think most places do. Like, people that say that they're paperless are often some of our most frequent customers.
Good. I thought it was just where I work, where we have to record like our hourly or like the times we work in 3 separate places, just in case.
Right.
God. Talk about
so. Let's like what would your pitch be when you're going out to talk to a customer and try to acquire them? Like, are you doing marketing to these people? Are you just going face to face? Like, what's your marketing look like?
Well, I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm one of the most socially awkward people on planet Earth. So with that in mind, I'm not a shy person. I just, as rudimentary and coarse as it may sound, I would literally just park my beater Honda in front of a pharmacy, walk in the front door, and say, we're small. We're local, and that locality characteristic, the locality really resonates here in this region, is that some of our competition is in fact the Walmart or the Amazon of our industry. And what really resonates with a lot of our customers is 3 components of our business, 3 characteristics. We're family owned and operated. We used to be small.
We still are.
We still are small, and we're local, and so that's basically what I would how I would market it. And the other nice thing is that if I hope you guys can appreciate this. I'm sure you can. If I want to do document destruction for Planet Fitness, I can't walk into Planet Fitness and speak to the person I need to, who's in charge of corporate vendors, right? But if I walk into Tom's Pharmacy, I can speak to Tom. And so like we do have some large scale corporate clients, but by and large, a lot of our clients have business demographics that are very similar to ours. And so much like we use vendors, or we attempt to use vendors that are very similar to us, a lot of our customers have gratefully chosen to work with us because our demographic is very similar to them. But other than that, we owe an awful lot of credence to our employees who are fantastic, and we couldn't do it without them. And we just try, I think, Karen might yell at me for saying this, but it's her credo. She tries to stink less than our competition.
When Aaron asked me to do this podcast, I was like, I don't have an hour's worth of content.
You do.
We just suck less than our competition.
But I think Karen doesn't give herself enough credit. We have tried to, and in today's climate, it's our competition is not good at mastering the basics well, and we try to master the basics well. We try to be consistent, and we try to deliver an employee who is articulate and in uniform and does the job, and it has a good repertoire with our customers. And as far as we're concerned, I mean, Karen's absolutely fantastic at scheduling and organizing. I mean, I can't at 7 o'clock in the morning, I can't find the coffee bag that's staring me in the face at eye level. And she's fantastic at that. And so I think, I think we deliver a half decent service. And I mean, a lot of our growth has quite literally been a customer calling and saying, we don't care what you cost.
Yeah.
Get us
It's a great problem.
anything than what we have.
And
so
if I can interject.
So like you have the big Centosses, you guys are coming in and just
Yeah.
delivering on the basics. And kind of like last week, my man Tony Daniels said, like, the secret sauce is doing the boring work, showing up in uniform, just showing up. Let's start there. Showing up in uniform. Yeah. On time, God forbid, doing what you're supposed to do. Like that literally can be the secret sauce.
And if I can, kind of spin off on that for a minute, we are really lucky that we have great employees. Like we've weathered this, like, it's hard to find good help storm very well. And our employees have been very loyal to us and they're very good to us, which is a huge help. And when I say that I suck less than my competition, I mean the big guys. We do have a few local companies that we work really well with together. I think they have sort of one has a bit of a different region, although we overlap. And another company has a sort of a different game. Like we do mostly on-site shredding. So we come to our customer and do it at their location. And one of our other local sort of competitors takes in like paper by the tractor trailer load and shreds it at his facility. So we get along, and we need each other. I think we definitely give each other work in that small scale kind of community here. But like the big corporations are, we've just gained a lot of customers because they don't, they're just like, it's hard for us to walk into Walmart and find the person we need to talk to. It's hard to call those big shredding companies and find the person that can help.
Yeah. And like what really resonates too is like when you call our business phone number, you get her, like you get the owner of the company handling your concern. And I mean, it's just a testament to putting a real live human being. I mean, how often do you call, you have a problem with your internet provider and you call and you literally cannot speak to a human. And so I think that resonates a lot, with our customers. We haven't really tried, like when we first bought the business from her mom, I tried to actively solicit customers. And we haven't done that in probably 6 years. And
that's a really good problem to have.
How good of a job Karen does is over the past 3 to 4 years, our growth has been very consistent and pretty darn good. And I think, it's
and I mean, a lot of it is our trucks are 2 rolling billboards, right? So we'll pull up in a business complex and we have a regular customer there. And then the guy next door calls and says, hey, what are you doing for these guys? Can you do this for me? And so a lot of our growth has been that way. And to be honest, I get solicitation calls all the time. We can help you grow your business. And I think that Mike and I agree that so we manage this with 7 part-time employees.
I was going to ask, are they part-time, 1099, full-time? How's that look?
No, there's part-time employees. And I think we're at the point where if we got a lot bigger, we would need to hire somebody full-time. And we don't really want to do that.
Right.
We're very happy.
Are you billed as a woman-owned business because you bought it from your mom and then now you're one of the owners?
So I actually didn't. I've never taken advantage of that.
You can get a lot of special contracts as like minority owned that way.
Yeah, and when I first, just like Mike went to local businesses and sold us, I went to a lot of conferences and did a lot of networking when we first started out. And I just honestly just never gone through the process of certifying it that way. And I know that I should. It's just best.
Good. What does networking look like for like a shredding business? Like, is there conferences that you go to? Like, what is that?
There are. We've never been to strictly a shredding conference. We joined our local chamber of commerce when we first really got into this, and so we're a member of 2 local chambers.
That landed us a few good customers. It did. That was a good membership. But there are industry conferences, believe it or not, in the shredding realm. But they're kind of like the fire conferences where Seagrave sends a rep and
get some sweet T-shirts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Like all the major truck builders, like we have 2 different brands of trucks. They show up to those conferences and try to, sell trucks and sell equipment and stuff.
And how about your billing? Like, what's your billing look like? Is it by the amount of time you spend there? Is it by the load? Is it like, how do you?
Either by the container, so I'll bill like per container. If because a lot of times people will be like, I have a pile on the floor. That literally happens. Like you walk into an office and they've got a pile on the floor. We fill our container, repeatedly until the pile's gone, and then I bill them per number of containers.
It's really a complex billing system. It's very nuanced.
Or we use like smaller, large banker boxes as a metric. So people will call and say, I have 100 large banker boxes, and I'll give them a per box price. Because what often happens, and I email my employees at the beginning of the week with the schedule. And I think our employees' biggest complaint is like, you said they only had 10 boxes when we got there and there were 400. I'm like, that's what they told me. And so
just like a typical dispatch. You said they were sick. You didn't say they weren't breathing. Shit.
So just like in the dispatch, I've now typed in verbatim whatever the customer tells me. Yeah. Customer states they have 80 years worth of shredding, right? Like, and that's obviously different for grandma versus, an attorney. So sometimes it's really hard to estimate, but that's why I almost never give like a total project completion price as a quote. I'll give them a per box price or a per bin price. We've also had it, not often, but we've had people try to take advantage where like, you show up, and early on I would go out and give a lot of quotes in person. And I'd go give a quote on Monday, and then we'd come shred it on Friday, and the pile was twice as big as the quote I gave them, So I've just stopped doing that. I just call them and tell them, hey, this is what it is per box. And I tell my employees, like, if I type in my email, that they have 20 boxes and you show up, then there's 400, like, please give me a call, because I don't want them to be surprised when they get the bill, because if they told me 20 boxes and I told them it was, X number of dollars per box, and now all of a sudden the bill is 20 times that, like, I just want to make sure it's going to get paid. That's all.
Because there's a big difference between an ass ton and a shit ton, and you want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what a shit ton and what an ass ton actually.
When we recycle our paper, it actually says you have 3.4 shit tons.
Right. So, like, what's the biggest and what's the smallest projects that you guys are willing to take on?
Excuse me. I would say our biggest recently we've done, I would do anything. It's just a matter of, is the customer willing to let us come back the number of times that we're going to need to come back to do it? I mean, I think the biggest that we've accomplished was probably about 700 boxes. Yeah. And that's like a 3-day project. Now that we have the 2 trucks at that particular project, I think we have both trucks there for 3 full days. And I will do, I'll do 5 boxes we do some community shred events. And so I like people who call and like, hey, I have 3 boxes of my grandmother's taxes or whatever. I try to direct them to those events, and then we just charge them per box because we're going to be there anyway. And for businesses, I typically charge them for 1 bin if they're local, or if it's a little bit of a drive, I'll say 2 or 3 bins depending on how far we're driving. But only recently have we added like fuel surcharges and that kind of stuff. And I think that is what makes us popular with a lot of our customers, is that there's not like a hidden fee, right? Like the price, there's no hidden fee. And I tell them like, hey, it might be a 4 bin minimum, but that's not an extra fee. It just means that if I show up and you have 1 piece of paper, you're still getting charged for 4 bins,
Yes, not yesterday. This past weekend, there was a shredding event in my municipality by University of Maryland. And there's a long line of people trying to get in there and drop off trash. And this lady opens up her minivan that the springs are like sagging now. And it was from the floor to the ceiling, from front to back. And I was like, you've been holding on to this stuff, waiting for this event for a long time, haven't you? And everybody else had to had to wait for them to get their stuff out of the van and shred it. And everybody was kind of like, oh my God, like hire somebody, like just get out of our way. But that's a free event.
We've limited stuff like that. So when we do events like that one, typically who are sponsoring it will pay us by the hour. And we definitely have limited it to either like 10 boxes or 2 bins per customer.
Because every once in a while you'll get a small business owner who's like, oh, free service. And they show up with like 68 boxes in their minivan. And it's like, that's not really the intention of it. And it kind of.
What I like about this. So if I shred 80 boxes for 1 customer, it might mean that the 20 people at the end of the line don't.
What I liked about this lady is that I'm in the other line to drop off. I was getting rid of a bunch of wood. the lady, she pulled up in the other line next to me, and me and the guy at the truck were like, it was all loose paper. Nothing was in a box. It was just all paper stuffed in the van. And I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine what their house looks like.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's funny because everyone's definition is just so fluid. Like, people will say, oh my gosh, I have so much. And like, I know, but like, can we assign a mathematical metric to so much? Like, to put it in perspective, in 2019, as a company, we destroyed a shade under 1 million pounds of, 500. Oh God, now I'm going to suck at math, but we did just under 1 million pounds of paper in 2019. So, people's like, it's ironically like the residential customer who has 3 boxes of tax returns, we spend about 2 hours coordinating that. Meanwhile, we have a lawyer who sends us a text message and is like, Monday morning, 9 a.m., I got 712 boxes. Boom, done.
Yeah. That's honestly the part that we have to streamline. Like, that's the part we have the hardest time with is how do I account for, there's one of the local companies that we deal with for some of our stuff. She said the one day she has a pain in the ass fee. And I was like, I need to put that in.
She called it a PIA fee. And I was like, what pray tell is a PIA fee?
I've 100% done
that's
that.
The pain in the ass fee for a customer that I want to reach through the phone and choke out.
Yeah. And honestly, I think just recently, like when we first got into this, it was like any work is good work, right? And I think in the last 2 or 3 years, we've matured beyond that.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny because, like, in the more recent economic climate, like we've had to pass on a little bit of the diesel fuel cost onto the end user. We've had no choice, but not to go down that road. The point is that the good customers, like, we've really made an effort. Like, if there's no phone call, no email, we can just show up every Tuesday, shred your bin, the check is in the mail. We've tried to buffer or protect those customers to the best of our ability because they're easy customers. They're great customers. Like, they're not a hassle. They're not a hassle, like, it's just easy in, easy out, checks in the mail, life goes on. And, so, we try to do our best to accommodate, those customers.
So I know you guys went from the 1 truck to now 2 trucks, and the equipment has changed. Like, how do you determine what equipment you're going to buy, what your overhead is going to look like, what your return on investment is going to look like? Do you guys calculate that out, or is it expected? How does that look?
So, I mean, the cost of the first truck we bought was a used truck. We flew to
Arizona
to look at it. We bought it from a guy who did the exact same thing that we did, and he was retiring, and he had sold his customer list to somebody else and was selling the truck by itself. And we looked at the truck, and I think Mike and I both were like, wow, like, our life is going to be so much easier with this thing. And it is.
Operation.
Yeah. And so we still typically send 2 people out unless it's like a short day or a long drive and an easy job at the end of the drive. But yeah, so we went all in on that truck for, it was like $95,000. Is that what we paid for it, I think?
Yeah.
And that was a huge step for us. Like, I think he and I both kind of felt like still kids at that time. We were in our 20s, and the business was kind of new to us, and it was kind of like, all right, this is our sink or swim. Like when we had bought it from my mom, we were paying her, but she's my mom. You know what I mean? There wasn't like that huge pressure of like, oh my God, we're going to go bankrupt if we can't pay the bills at the end of the month or whatever. But when we went all in on the new truck, we didn't even own a house yet, right? Mm-hmm. We were still living in an apartment. So it was by far the most valuable thing that we had purchased together when we bought it.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary. And, I relish this opportunity. Thank you for having us to talk about this, because it's cathartic, and it's also nice to know that, like, the stresses that we live every day, that, like, there's other people in the world who are like, oh my God. And so, to Karen's point, like, when we bought this brand new shredding truck,
it was used, but
the next one was brand new. You realize, like, hey, I'm trusting one of my employees to not drive this thing into an orphanage, on their daily route. And this thing costs more than the house that I live in. And so
now you can relate to the fire chief.
yeah, exactly.
$2 million aerial scope.
Ladder
Please
truck.
do not drive it through the nearest playground.
But
especially Karen's old firehouse.
Right. So obviously with the trucks, there's, we try to, we before we make any purchase, we have a very, very clear understanding of how they operate and the mechanics involved in how they operate. And we try to compare those mechanical processes compare them in terms of longevity and reliability. So, it's, I think for us, one of the most important aspects of the equipment we own is the ability to get help, the ability to pick up the phone, call Seagrave or call Pierce Manufacturing and say, help me, if I can say this, unfuck my problem.
I could say that.
Oh, I don't know. So customer service is huge for us. And we have two trucks by two different builders, and the customer service from both of those builders has been fantastic.
And if I may, I think the biggest thing that I didn't bargain for, and I think both of us, neither one of us are mechanics, but now we are.
Now we are.
No one works on a shred truck. You can't just send it over, to the dealership and be like, hey, fix this. It's us or it's nobody. And when we first bought that first automated truck, it became apparent that we could no longer stay afloat with that older truck that we had. Although we did have it, it just wasn't going to keep up with the volume that we were doing. So it was a good backup, and we used it for a few specific things. Like those shred days when people show up and there's a hammer in their shredding, and it was easier to use that old truck. So we
do you charge them the PIA fee for that?
I wish.
We usually throw it back at them.
We hit them in the head with it. Yeah. But I mean, it's probably the most stressful thing. And I think, Karen deserves a lot of credit here. I think what makes our dynamic work and work very well is we don't have any predefined roles. I overwhelmingly handle commercial truck repair and maintenance and all the maintenance involved in maintaining both pieces of equipment. And Karen, does our taxes, handles payroll, does a lot of the administrative work. But the most important stipulation to those two endeavors is that if I say, hey, I need you to turn this wrench, she's over there getting her hands dirty, working hard, underneath the truck, and she does what she has to do to get the job done. And I think she deserves a lot of credit for that. And, I never fancied myself an accountant, but I'm pretty proficient with QuickBooks. I never fancied myself a salesman, and I walked into the door of a pharmacy and got a contract 8 years ago that we have to this day. And so, I think, what makes the dynamic successful is that at no point in this relationship have we ever said, yeah, I'm not doing that. And
at a certain point, as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to change whatever seat needs filled at any point in time. Yeah. And frankly, if everybody on your team was just like you, what kind of team would it be?
Well, right. So, and I also think too, we have phenomenal employees, but what we've learned the hard way is if I drive my fire engine off a bridge, the reality is that at the end of the day, I walk away from that. I say, hey, chief, sorry, whoopsies.
As long as it's not
and I walk away, right? But when you own the business, it is your problem and you have to own 100%. It. And, we've had countless examples where we're going here, we're going there, and we're replacing parts and we're fixing this and making this phone call. And at the end of the day, it is her problem. It is my problem. And good, bad, or indifferent, I think that's really helped us thrive as a family and as business owners is we rely on each other, but at the end of the day, we just do what we have to do.
Right.
And
I think, along those lines, we both learned a lot. Mike has definitely learned a lot about QuickBooks and accounting, and I've learned way more than I ever wanted to about fixing heavy duty trucks.
So what
and
do
shredders.
your employees do that too? Like, do they jump in, or they just kind of like they have a one job and they go do that job, or do they help?
They have one job. Their job is primarily in the field. Their job is to shred paper. I mean,
we've definitely considered hiring people to do some of our office work. And at the end of the day, I think part of it is that I just don't want to let it go. And part of it is that, I know what different customers need or how we build them or what happens, and to try to explain that and put it into a process. And I know that, just listening to your podcast and other podcasts, like the whole idea is to make your process repeatable, right? But and I think if I sat down and did it, ours would be. But it's just so far, I think it's been easier for the two of us to kind of handle it. We do have one of our employees likes to tinker with stuff. So if we have small projects with the trucks, at least, that need to be done, he, will be like, hey, can you fix this latch or grease this or do that? And he will do it. But, far and away, that responsibility falls on.
Yeah. I mean, I spend my Sunday mornings, much to the chagrin of my wife, I spend my Sunday mornings changing fuel filters, servicing equipment, in one way, shape, or form. And I'm not sad about this. I work 7 days a week. I mean, I was up till 11 o'clock at night a couple nights ago, just doing invoicing. And I just can't emphasize that enough. I really think, Karen deserves a ton of credit in that you just do what you got to do.
So at a certain point, though, do you make the decision to systematize and offload certain things? Like,
yes,
I can't. Yeah, I get the point. Like, sometimes you have to do stuff, but
we do. Yeah, payroll.
I mean, I've passed a lot of stuff off to my accountant, and there's when we started this business, it was like, oh, we could save $10 by doing that ourselves. Well, absolutely, we're going to do it ourselves, and now it's obviously that has kind of worked itself into some systems that we definitely pay for. I've passed a lot of the basic I used to do my own payroll, write my own checks, and do all that stuff. I've passed that off to our accountant and QuickBooks. I use that as well. But
how about hiring employees? Like, how do you guys pick and choose who you're hiring? How do you decide that I need 7, I need 5, I need 2? Like, how do you determine that?
So most of our employees have come through the fire department. We have one regular guy right now who is retired. He's like a retired maintenance guy. So he's available most often. But we do try to send 2 people on a truck for the most part.
In the same respect that the career fire service is conducive to us doing what we do, the career fire service is also conducive to some of our employees doing what they do.
So one of the ways we've been really lucky is that we've never just hired blindly.
Right.
Every employee that we have, that wasn't true for my mother when she owned it, but since we've taken it, every employee that we've had has been either a personal acquaintance or a reference of a close personal.
We haven't hired blind. And I mean, you can call that nepotism if you'd like, but having a pre-existing relationship with someone before you unleash them on a $250,000 piece of equipment.
I call it not being stupid.
Yeah. Well, and the other understanding that we have with all of our employees is they send me their availability usually on Friday, sometimes on Saturday. I formulate a schedule based on that. I fill them all into 5 days a week, and I send out an email with, hey, you're working these days. All of them understand that this is a part-time job, right? None of them rely, I hope, on the money that we pay them. I think for almost all of them, it's just, extra money. It's good cash, and obviously they want it and they earn it and they deserve it. But at the end of the day, it's not what is feeding their family. And that takes a lot of the stress off of me. When everything shut down for COVID, we stayed in business for the most part, but we definitely had a good slowdown. And we were able to tolerate that because we knew at the end of the day that nobody's child was waiting on our paycheck to feed their mouth, and we were able to kind of weather that storm more easily that way. And it just makes it a lot less stressful for both of us, I think, to know that all of them have another main source of income. And it's
how often are you guys doing turnovers? Like, how often are you having to hire somebody? Have they been with you for a long time?
Most of them have been with us for a long time.
Yeah.
I would say everybody's been there, with the exception of one, for at least 5 years, right? Maybe 4.
Yeah.
And one guy we just hired within the last 2 years. One of the weird things that just happened to us is that, like I said, most of them are firefighters, and they all recently have just ended up on the same shift. So every 3 days I have a staffing crisis.
Got to call out, guys. Come on.
Right.
Got shit to shred here.
I've been able to fill it in either with myself going out on the truck. Like we said, we just kind of make it work. So if I'm home, I'll ride the truck, or somebody's got a Kelly day somewhere. And sometimes I've had to kind of beg, borrow, please.
I know you said you send out the schedule, but do you like batch your days? Like, is it a 5-day-a-week operation, or is it like we go out Mondays and Thursdays, or?
No, it's typically 5 days a week. Like this week is a little slow, so we're not working. The truck's not out today.
Well, you group it geographically.
But I do group it geographically. So like I have a regular Tuesday run and a regular Friday run and a regular Monday run in 3 different locations, and I try to group stuff in there. And typically when people call with like, hey, I have 700 boxes, I'll be like, I save my Wednesdays and Thursdays to kind of piece those together. But I do even try to do that geographically, especially now with the cost of fuel, but even before that, just to make it make sense as much as I can.
Are you guys running diesel engines, or are you running gasoline engines on the rigs?
Wah, wah.
Is that a sore subject?
It used to not be, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Have you listened to the Fire Dogs episode with the junk removal company out of Indianapolis that we interviewed?
I did a while ago. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So obviously it's not exactly shredding, but it's a comparable, I think, type of
business model.
Take your crap away.
Model. But I thought that guy had a really solid way he operated. Like he had like battalions where he was like this run route, like you just said, you have this run route on Monday, this one on Tuesday. Like I thought it sounded like he broke it down very systematically and organized.
That's how
where it was like.
I do. Yeah, I try. So like the biggest problem I have is like I'm kind of a softy. So when a customer's like, if they call, what's today, Wednesday? If they call today and I tell them like next Wednesday, I'm like, oh, I have to wait a week. Like, well, all right, I'll try and work.
You've had it for 8 years, lady. It's not going anywhere in a week.
Yeah, well,
right. But that's why we've been successful, is because I try to be as responsive.
No, I'm just kidding. Like, there's a difference between like being responsive to your customers and letting the customer run the business too. Exactly. But I get what you're saying. Like, you have to be responsive.
I recently had a conversation with a customer. I was super real with them, and that's been, I think, really, it's worked for me. If I screw it up, and that happens, like very rarely do I send out a list and my employees come back and say like, oh, I forgot this one. Like if I send the list gets done, and they're really good that way. If a customer gets forgotten, it's because I forgot to put it on the list. Well, and I usually tell, like when the customer calls and says, hey, nobody came to me, like, I'm really sorry. Like I just forgot, and so in those situations. No, it doesn't happen. Thankfully, it doesn't happen every day. But I do try to get back to them as soon as I can in those situations. And we recently had a client who they were a reference from another local client that we picked up at a chamber meeting, and it was sort of I don't know them at all, other than they call and they tell me their name, and I know their name when they call. But they were one of our first clients, and I feel like we just have like a loyalty to them, and they have a sister company that's like 45 minutes away, and they're the only company that we do in that area, and we only go there every 3 months. And recently we've had a couple other like one-time jobs out that way, so I just stop and pick them up, and I charge them less because we're there, and it's cheaper than me making a special trip out there to get them. Like, we're right next door, I'll get your stuff and I'll charge you as little as I can, and go with that. And they kind of called me, they're like, hey, like I thought we were on this schedule. And I was just really honest with them. And I said, hey, I can give you good service at a price that I don't think is fair. Like, you should not pay what I'm going to charge you for that good service. Or I can give you like kind of crappy service at a very fair price. And I told them, I said, like, I normally would have passed you off as a customer, but because we have this relationship with your parent company, I want to do right by them. And they were like, all right, we'll take your crappy service at a fair price. And I was like, all right, great. You
could always refer those types of clients to like somebody that you had a mutually beneficial relationship with in that area, if there was one.
So we actually did do that with these people, and the service that they got from that company wasn't great.
It was even crappier than your low price service.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So
at least you're transparent about it though. Like, you know what you're offering, what your capabilities are, and you're transparent. You're not promising something you can't deliver. You're promising exactly what you're delivering.
And
right.
That's exactly it. And so like when we have customers call like, hey, I'm getting really crappy service from this company, can you do it? And I give them a price. They're like, well, what we're paying is cheaper. Right.
I guess
Because
go
what
with
you're
them.
getting is
Is crappy.
crappy and
Yeah,
not
you're
acceptable
eating at
to you.
McDonald's, not Ruth's Chris. Then, all right, fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, we own our triumphs and we own our mistakes. We had a customer a few weeks ago called and wanted a pickup. Karen just, oh my goodness, forgot to put that customer on the schedule. So we owned it and we made it right. And so we said, we forgot you. We'll be down, tomorrow, and we didn't charge them a penny for it. So we take the hit on that. And I hope that that's something that distinguishes us from Walmart and Amazon and the larger competitors, is the willingness to say, we made a mistake, we're going to own it. Thanks for being with us, and not just, because I can assure you that our competitors would say, well, sucks to be you. We'll catch you next time.
This all goes back to like that personal touches that you have. Like when you call the phone, Karen answers it, or Mike answers it, and it's like that's a testament of like small businesses. It's a thing of the past. Like, I like going into a bank and being able to talk to a person. I like being able to call a business and talking to somebody, and being able to call them back later on and building a rapport with them, and because that makes your business grow. So that kind of leads me to my next question: is, are you guys still in growth phase? Are you comfortable with where you're at now? What's the plan for the future look like?
I think we're definitely comfortable with where we're at, and you always want to grow, but at the same time, I don't think we want to expand too much farther, because we're going to start to have to give up some of the control that we have, and I'm afraid that we would lose some of that personal touch.
Yeah.
I think our employees, if they listen to this, they might tell me differently, but I think our employees are happy with the amount of time that they spend, shredding, and I think there's always a balance. So we do definitely consider when we hire new people, like, are they going to get along with who's there now? Because they have to ride around in a truck it's like your ambulance partner, right? Like, you have to get along. A good partner makes the day go a lot better. And so we try to respect that for our employees. And I don't necessarily want to go out and, hire a bunch more people. And I don't think we really want to have more than 2 trucks to maintain.
Well, and the other thing too, as far as growth with us, is like, what's linear with sales growth for us is also capital acquisition and equipment acquisition. So for us, capital's very heavy duty for us. As we gain more sales and we gain larger clients like healthcare facilities, we were operating with 1.5 trucks. And then I said to Karen about a year and a half ago, I said, we need a second frontline piece of equipment. And we ended up purchasing another frontline shredding truck. Well, that's a major purchase. And so, something that keeps your growth in check and just makes you really plan for the future is like, hey, if we get that hospital, that's great. If we get that college, that's wonderful. But what it means is that with that growth comes big capital purchases. It comes with the potential for another $250,000 truck. You got to buy containers. You got to, so
more overhead.
Like, about doing office work, like we are. I think he and I put in the hours of at least probably 1.5 full-time employees in the office, right? Yeah. And so, without hiring somebody to do some of that for us, we're pretty well tapped out on the time.
And I'm guessing you guys have to have commercial space for the trucks, right? You can't just park these in front of your house.
We park them in front of somebody else's house. No, we have a great relationship with a local business, and we just they allow us to park them in their lot.
We pay them rent.
Yeah, we do, but to be fair, they've been super great to us and very flexible.
Yeah, they've been awesome.
And they're, if we need something, it's like, hey, you could borrow our tools. Like, oh, we showed up to pick up the invoices and we're leaking, something under the truck, and they throw us a wrench or, whatever. They've been really, really great, and we're really lucky to have that relationship. And it has kept us from having a ton of overhead. Like I don't have a building. I don't have a big facility.
Property tax.
Right. We just have that relationship with them where we park our trucks there, and that's that.
Cheaper for a parking space than it is for a commercial building.
Yes, sir.
For sure.
Yes, sir.
So what do you do with the remnants? So that's one thing we haven't touched on, is like, you shred 1 million pounds. You've just killed a whole bunch of trees, right? What do you do with all the remnants? Do you go to a farm and say, here's some nesting for your animals? Do you take it to burn it? What does that look like?
We use two private recycling centers. So we take it, we offload the truck there, and then they bale it and send it out to wherever they send it, I believe.
Pulping mills, basically. So the process is in fact green. You will one day wipe your ass with your paperwork. The pulverized material is baled like a bale of hay you'd see at a farm. Right. It's compressed. It's very dense. It's wrapped with baling wire. And then a pulping mill buys it. They buy it by the bale, and they recycle it back into paper towels, toilet paper, or office paper. So it is a green process, and we basically drive the truck on the scale. They weigh the truck. We drive off the scale. The walking floor unloads. The truck's capacity is roughly 3-ish tons of paper. The walking floor unloads everything off the back of the truck. Then, the recycler does with it what they please. We drive back on the scale. We leave, and so there is a recycling component to the business. This is not landfilled material. It's not really purposed for agriculture. It's turned back into paper.
We have had people ask to buy our paper for animal bedding and stuff, and there's just too much that we can't control. Like, there are staples in it, there's paper clips, there's that kind of stuff. So I've never really been willing to let somebody use it that way, just because I can't make any guarantees.
And I mean,
about that.
Sometimes it's 100% contingent upon market conditions, but sometimes the recycler does, because it's a commodity that produces a finished product. The recycler does value our material by the ton, so they'll pay us a little bit
because he knows he's going to make a penny off of it in the back end. Correct. So he's going to give you priority. Again, back to personal relationships.
Yep.
And I'm sure they know you guys by face and name.
Yeah. I mean, one of our primary purchasers is a business very similar to ourselves, and we have a good working relationship with that individual and that family. So yeah.
So is there anything that about the business, like any obstacles you want to highlight or anything you want to talk about that we didn't cover so far?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit more of a rant, but it's it's an evolution is what it is. It's a process. And I think when we first started this, I'm definitely guilty of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm set for life. I'm just going to watch the money roll in. And I was guilty of that. I have no problem admitting that. And nothing could be further from the case. And we always joke, kind of not really joking, that the endeavor that, doesn't make us the most money induces the most stress in our life. And, it's hard work. I guess that's my rant, is that, I'm proud of what we've built. It's our baby. It's our child. And, we've on occasion just entertained selling it, maybe. Maybe. No, it's just something that's crossed our mind. But then, you go like, hey, we built this together. And it's even though it's, it's not biological, it is something that you, it's a plan.
There's more write-offs with the business than the kids.
I joked earlier, like everything's for sale for the right price, but that is the couple times.
Shit, someday they'd be on sale.
Oh, believe me, like whatever, I'll pay you to take it today, right?
Yeah. But no, I can relate, man. Like I think we all can. Like when you pour all this time, effort, and energy into your business, it's hard not to like be protective and emotional about it, because it takes a ton of time, and anybody that just sits around the firehouse kitchen table and likes to drink a cup and then think about how easy it is and they would do this, and they're the same people that on Monday sit there could totally explain what they should have done on that football field, blah, 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 because clearly they're qualified for that role. And unless you've been the one taking the punches and rolling with it and doubting the purchase of a $250,000 truck and not remembering a client and then something
Mike,
breaking,
are you my twin from another world? Like, I feel like you're just articulating my emotions so much better than I am.
Yeah, and it's the emotional roller coaster of being an entrepreneur and a small business owner. And
for us, it's been our entire marriage. We were married for 3 months when we took this business from my mom, and I think I know, at least I think when I think about selling this, like, what are we going to talk about? What are we?
But this has always been in conjunction with the fire department, not in a replacement. Like
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me like, hey, what are you? I'm going to tell you I'm a fireman. Like I'm not a paper shredder, you know. But we do have so much time and energy and effort involved in this business, and I'm definitely really proud of what we built. And it's a very much like you can see your work pay off in this business, and you can, you know, you spend your Sunday morning, you know, changing a belt on the shredder. And as much as I don't want to do that, when I walk away from it, you know, I feel like I did something, and there's a lot of value that comes with that. And my favorite story is we had that first truck that we bought in Arizona. We had something went through that shredder. That
someone tried to shred a Louisville Slugger with that
something,
machine, and it damaged it
severely. Yeah. And so I was, it was in June of 2017. I was 7 months pregnant.
7 months pregnant.
And I climbed into the shredder so there was a piece of aluminum.
I hope you locked it out, tagged it out or something, man. Like, how do you go about that?
Keys out of the truck, you know. So we had to unjam the metal that was in there, and I'm in there with a hammer and a chisel, and I'm like, I remember sitting in that shredder sweating, like I like yelling at my pregnant belly, like, you better not be lazy when you come out of here. Like, this is, you know, this is what we've got to do and what we built. And like that is definitely a defining moment for us in this business. And at the end of the day, we actually traded that truck in because of the damage that was done.
Right.
And that was another big leap. Like, hey, we got a baby on the way. I was on light duty, living on my friend's couch outside of DC, trying to secure money to get a loan to buy a new shred truck. I was on light duty because of the distance. Like, I was working Monday through Friday. And so I stayed with my friend there while I was 8 months pregnant on her couch, trying to figure out how we're going to buy a new truck.
Finance it, yeah.
And get it back in service. And we turned it around in 2 weeks. I think we were down for 2 weeks, and we were using that old original truck for those 2 weeks. But we made it happen. And that was just like a really defining moment for me, was that, like, all right, I guess we're in this to win it, you know.
Yeah. It teaches you a work ethic. And, you know, one thing I'm very grateful for this experience is it has developed skill sets in both of us that we otherwise would not have had. And, you know, we're both half decent mechanics. We're half decent salespeople. We're decent accountants, and we're hustlers. And I don't really hesitate to say that we're hustlers. Who else can say they're married to someone who wakes up at 1:30 in the morning to drive 4 hours to work? My wife does, and that's something I'm very proud of. And then she comes home the next day and manages what is really a full-time small business in many respects. I think in many metrics, Shred-All has grown to this day to very much be a full-time operation. And you know, it's really a testament to Karen.
But we definitely couldn't do it without each other. Like, it works because we both work at it. And he is being really sweet. But,
he is. He's getting some points today, buddy.
So we're coming up on an hour. We got a couple final questions, but just before we get to those, is there anything we haven't touched on that you guys wanted to get out? Obviously, that we've kind of covered a lot of territory here, and frankly, in something that's pretty interesting to me, because it's not real estate, but it's a small business, and basically any small business, I love kind of seeing, like, behind the curtain, like, what makes it tick? How does the billing work? How's the, you know, because I always see stuff like this, and I'm not necessarily shredding, but power washing and all these other different businesses. I'm like, I wonder how they, you know, estimate. I wonder what the average profit margin is on that, and all these types of things. So this has been pretty cool. But with that being said, is there anything you wanted to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, I think that we kind of came into it just figured we'd let it go where it went. And
if I just want an hour easily. I wanted to say thank you to Mike and Aaron, because some
Tyler's
days,
on here too, but California commie internet brought on.
I saw the comment here. California is taxing by the word, and that would not surprise me. I'm sure that's
I know it's home to him, but man, he's got to run for office or something. Straighten him out.
It's been a great experience, and so I just wanted to say thank you, because for us, I think there are some days where we go, does anyone know what this is like? Does anyone live these triumphs and these days where you just want to say,
screw it,
I'm done.
I'm gonna sit on the couch,
and so
get fat, eat Cheetos.
It's so
hell with this.
It's very refreshing. It's very refreshing. It's been a great experience, and so to everybody, I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, and to that effect, in case you guys ever wonder if what you're doing is valuable, it is. I have listened to a lot of your podcasts, almost all of them, and I think that I have 4 hours to fill up on my way to and from work. So it is comforting to know that there's a lot of other people out there who kind of have the same sentiment. Like, hey, I put my heart and soul into this thing, and it's gotta sink or swim. And at the end of the day,
it always surprises.
Well, we appreciate that because we often do have that conversation. Like, is this really worth it? Like, is this really?
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not,
it's encouraging to see.
Even if you're not necessarily learning something that's applicable, it's nice to know that other people are, have the struggle. And like you said, like it's just interesting to hear what other people go through to make it work.
It's always interesting to me of who my friends are listening to this because like, hey man, I heard your podcast. I was like, you listen to my podcast? Really? They're like, yeah, man, that was pretty good. I liked episode so and so. I'm like, oh, all right. Actually, we're getting some viewerships. That's all. That's cool. Yeah. So let me ask you guys the final questions. If you guys can go back and give your younger self advice, obviously you guys have been married and in the fire department for well over a decade now. So if you can go back and give your younger self advice about the fire department, the family, or the business, what advice would that be?
Oh boy.
I should have known that this question was coming and thought about it better, but I don't really know. Like I think we've been pretty happy with the way things have worked out. And it's easy to say like, oh, I would have done more sooner or jumped in, quicker or whatever, but I don't know that that's necessarily the case here. I think I wish I knew sooner that I could have let some stuff go. We could have worked into letting QuickBooks run our accounting a lot faster than we have and that kind of small stuff. But at the end of the day, it's small stuff.
I think for me, it's the lesson that there's a non-monetary value in work ethic.
Yeah.
And, we've had to sweat and curse and struggle. And sometimes you look at the checking account in QuickBooks and go, what the hell are we doing with ourselves here? But there's a non-monetary value to that effort. And, I hope that, unfortunately my son inherited my lack of intelligence, but I hope what he does inherit.
That's not true. He did.
Mine. Yeah. Thank God. I hope what my son does inherit is a work ethic. And I pay him $10. I say, come on, let's go. We throw him in the truck and he carries boxes or he'll turn wrenches. He's he has
He's got those little fingers now to get slugger out of the tight spots.
He's very useful in small spaces.
Yeah. And so, I think that's my takeaway is even if the money isn't what I thought it would be, I feel like I've built something. And it may not, it's something not tangible, but I feel like having run the business for as long as her and I have, our relationship has changed very much for the better.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to know each other and ourselves on a level that I never would have if we didn't have this together.
Right.
So that's been that.
I'm not even going to ask you what's your why, because obviously I think it's each other and your family for you guys. Like that's what your driving force is.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's just kind of become what has defined us.
And I think for me, I have a little bit like, how do I say this nicely? If I work super duper hard at the fire department, the check is still the same. And I'm not complaining, but for me, the business element to a certain extent has allowed myself and us to write our own ticket and create our own destiny to a certain extent. And travel
more. It seems like you guys do.
Right.
We do. Yeah.
And so that element too, for me, my why is a little bit like my work. Sometimes I feel like with the business, my effort is more closely correlated to my bank account. And, you know, and so the ability to write your own destiny, and, you know.
And I'll expound on that a little bit, is that, like, because of that, I don't want to have a multi-million-dollar business, because I don't want to put that much effort. I don't want to take that much away from the rest of my life in order to put in the effort necessary to get there.
Right.
You know, like, it's definitely put in perspective for me, like the money and the effort thing. And it's, you know, money's not everything. I want to stay successful. There's not necessarily a dollar amount.
And that's an important realization to have. So
yeah.
Well, cool.
I also want to sleep at night. So.
All right. So we got over about an hour and 10 minutes now. So Karen was worried that we weren't able to fill up an hour. I think we can probably keep going, but this would be a good podcast to listen to on her 4-hour drive from PA to DC, so you can hear yourself talk. And Mike and Karen, thanks for hopping on. This is
thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate it, guys. And stay on. We're going to chap it up. I got to text Tyler right now, and hopefully we'll see you here soon.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.